Hi, this is Dr. Thomas, math instructor at Lawson State Community College, and in this video I want to do a review for you for the Math 090 Readiness Exam, Part A. I'm going to split up the Part A into two sections, and this is Part A1, okay, and it's on operations on whole numbers. So in Part A, you will be adding and subtracting big numbers, multiplying, dividing big numbers, and order of operations. You should always read the directions, take your time, and please check all of your answers before you turn in the exam. It's very important that you check all of your answers as if you're doing it for the first time, so that you can make sure that you are passing the readiness exam and not making simple mistakes. Okay? What I want to do now is show you the readiness exam. This is section A of the spring 2011 readiness exam, and this was the actual test given to students in the spring 2011 semester. So notice that you have adding, subtracting, dividing, you have some rounding here, and not just whole numbers but decimals as well. What I'm going to do is work on operations with decimals in the next video, so Part A2. But if you want a review on just adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing whole numbers, I'm going to put those topics in this video. So let's start with number 1 here. Okay, 418 plus 526 plus 21. So we were given 418 plus 526 plus 21. Okay, you should always stack the numbers vertically. So we will write it 418, and then we're going to write a line. So everything will be right aligned. So I'm going to stack that 21 so that that 1 and the 8 and the 6, all of those last numbers will line up. Okay, so let's add this first column here. We have 8 plus 6, which is 14, and you add 1. Okay, that gives you 15, and then you're going to carry a 1. Then you have that 1 you carried plus another 1, which is 2, plus another 2 is 4, plus another 2 is 6. Then you add this last column up here, which is 4 plus 5 gives us 9. So the answer is 965. It's as simple as that. So that was number 1. Okay. Let's look at number 2 here. Number 2, 7,004 minus 5,164. Let's try that. 7,004 minus 5,164. Okay, so we start on the right. We have 4 minus 4. That gives us 0. Notice that this 0 here is less. This number is less than 6. So that's when we have to start borrowing, when that top number is lower than the bottom number. So we're going to borrow and make it a 10. So we add 10 to that 0, it becomes 10. Now we still have to borrow. Now we would normally make that a 10, but since we borrowed already, we make that a 9. Okay, and then we got to keep borrowing till we don't have to anymore. So we got to make that 7 a 6. Now 10 minus 6 is 4. 9 minus 1 is 8. 6 minus 5 is 1. Now if you uncomfortable with subtraction, it's really best if you would check your answer. And how would you check to see if 1,840 was correct? You need to add these two numbers together to see if you'll get the top number. Okay? So 5,164, you could do this on the side. You need to add those two numbers together. We get 4, 6 plus 4 is 10. Carry the 1, 8, 9, 10. See those zeros that I wanted. 5, 6, 7. Wonderful. I get the 7,004. Now if you didn't get that, you know that you need to tweak some of your numbers. Okay, you know that maybe you didn't borrow enough. So that's how you know your answer is correct. Alright. Let's go to number 3. So this is a multiplication problem. $285 times 807. So we first start with this number over here on the right, 7, and we're going to multiply that 7 times the 5, and then we're going to multiply it times the 8, and then we're going to multiply it times the 2. Then we're going to start back over, start stacking, multiply the 0 times the 5, the 8, and the 2. And then we're going to multiply the 8 times the 5, the 8, and the 2. Sort of like distributive property if you think about it. So we have 5 times 7. 5 times 7 is 35. Very important that you know your timetables here. Let's carry that 3. What do we have now? Now let's multiply 8 times 7. That's 56. And then you add this 3. You get 59. So let's carry that 5. Now what do you have? 2 times 7. That's 14. Plus that 5 gives us the 19. Now, we must multiply the 0 times the 5, the 8, and the 2. But we're going to move over one space. So we're not going to put the 0. Some people put a 0 here. So let me go ahead and do it. Some of you will put a 0 right here, which is fine. Automatic 0. I normally shift over once I start multiplying. So 0 times 5 here is 0. 0 times 8 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. Okay? Then, for example, let me go ahead and multiply 8 times 5. I'll shift over one more. So we'll be here. So that's 40. And let me erase these numbers. I don't want to get them mixed up. You can scratch them out. So that's 40. I carry my 4 here. Then 8 times 8 is 64. Plus 4 is 68. Carry my 6. 8 times 2 is 16. Plus 6 is 22. Then I'm going to add my numbers together. Now you probably had some zeros here and here. But always remember, you really need to shift over to the left one space every time you start multiplying new number times that top number 285. So what do we have here when we add 500? We get 5. 9 plus 0 plus 0 is 9. 9 plus 0 plus 0 is 9. 8 plus 1 is 9 again. Then we're going to write the 2 down and the 2. Where should I put my comma? Every 3 numbers. So that's 1, 2, 3. So we should put a comma right here. So the answer is 229,995. Let's go to number 4. It says perform the indicated operation here. $42 divided into 11,291. Now, let's look at this 42. We first decide, can 42 go into this first number here? 1. It cannot. It's not small enough. So we figure out if 42 can go into the 11. It cannot. It's still too big. Okay, and then we figure out if 42 can go into 112. Definitely so. But we just got to figure out how many times can it go into 112. Okay, so you would have to do a little side calculation. So you go 42 times 2. Let's try 2. And keep this organized because you may have to refer back to it. So 42 times 2 is 4 and 8. So 84. So let's try 3 and see if we can squeeze 3 in there. 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times 3 is 12. A little bit too much, okay? A little bit too much. So 42 can go into 112 2 times. So let's put 2 here and put 84 here. So now we must subtract that 112 and that 84, okay? Now, notice that that 2 is smaller than the 4. So we gotta add 10 to that 2 and make it a 12. But then we gotta borrow from the 10 spot. Okay, and it would normally have been 11, right? But since we borrow from it, we make it a 10. And then we keep on borrowing. Okay, since that number 1 is smaller than 8. So 12 minus 4, what is that? That is 8. 10 minus 8, that's 2. And I always just check these numbers, okay? This 84 and this 28 to see if you get back a 112, because you don't want to make a mistake there and don't realize it, and you're continuing, and I mean the whole thing's gonna be wrong if you mess up in the beginning. Okay, so 4 plus 8, that gives me the 12. That 2 I want, and then I carry the 1. 8 plus 2 is 10, 11. That gives me what I want. So now we're gonna always bring down the next number. The next number is 9. So now we got to figure out how many times does 42 go in 289. Now we know that 42 times 3 is 126. So let's try 42 times 4. That gives me 8 there, 168. And then let's go over here. 42 times 5. That's 10. Carry the 1. 21. Then 42 times 6, 12. Carry the 1, 4, 25. 42 times 7 is 14. Carry the 1, 28, 29. So the 7 is too much. So it must be 6. 6 times 42 over here is 252. Subtract. 9 minus 2 is 7. 8 minus 5 is 3. 2 minus 2 is 0. Always just keep on going. Don't assume that that number is always 0 out here. Okay. Now what do? Let's go ahead and bring down the next number, which is 1. How many times does 42 go into 371? Now we know that 42 times 7 is 294. So that's why it's important that you organize your multiplication so you can go back and refer to those numbers that you've already multiplied instead of reworking multiplication over and over and over again. Okay? So let's try 42 times 8. And it's probably best if you do a little bit more organized than what I'm doing right now on your scratch paper. 42 times 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. Carry the 1. So 4 times 8 is 32. Plus 1 is 33. Then we're going to try 42 times 9. 2 times 9 is 18. Carry the 1. 36, 37. Alright. So 9 is too much, right? So it must be 8. Okay. So we put 8. We see that 42 times 8 is 336. So let's put that here. And then notice that the 1 here is less than the 6, so we have some borrowing to do. Okay, we're going to add 10 to this 1 and make it 11. But then we have to borrow from the 10 spot because we took 10 away from this spot. So we got to make it a 6. Alright, since that number 7 is bigger than 3, then we don't have to borrow again because that number 7 was bigger than 3. Okay, so let's subtract. 11 minus 6, that's 5. 6 minus 3, that's 3. And then 3 minus 3 is 0. Now, I do not have any other numbers to bring down, therefore 35 is my remainder. So you're going to put R, capital R, lowercase r, doesn't matter really, for remainder 35. So this is the answer. 42 can go to 11,291, 268 times with the remainder of 35. Let's try number 5 here. 330 divided into 206,156. Okay, let's get started. 330. Now I see that 330 is not going to go into 206, so it must go into 2061. Okay. But how many times? So let's guesstimate. If I say 6, or it could be 5. Let's see. Let's just go ahead and try 5 just to be safe. 0 times 5 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 15 plus 1 is 16. Now let's try 6. That's 0. 3 times 6 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 6 is 18. Plus 1 is 19. Now, that looks like it's going to be a winner. But let's try 7. That's 0. 3 times 7 is 21. Carry your 2 that time. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 2, 23. Too much. Therefore, we know that it's 6 times. Okay? Because of that 1980 there. What is 330 times 6? 1980. Let me erase this red line here. And let's subtract. So we have 1 minus 0. Great. 1. Here we have 6 minus 8. That number is smaller than 8. So we must start borrowing. We're going to add 10 to that 6 and make it a 16. But we got to borrow from the 10 spot. Alright, make it a 9. And since 0 is less than 9, we got to keep on borrowing. And make that 2 a 1. Alright, 16 minus 8 is 8. 9 minus 9 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. Now you really don't have to put those zeros there. Okay, so as long as you know that 0, 0, you can keep it there. But next step would be always drop down that next number. 5 in this case. Now, how many times does 330 go into 815? Don't know. Guesstimate 3 would be too much because 3 times 3 is 9 and we need 815. So what is 330 times 2? So let's go over here. 330 times 2, 0, 6, 6, 660. And just to prove that 3 is too much, let's do 3. That's 0, 9, 9. Too much. So 2 is the winner. 2 times 330 is 660. We're going to subtract. 5 minus 0 is 5. Here that 1 is less than 6, so we're going to have to borrow again. Add 10 to this 1. we're going to make it an 11, and then we're going to borrow from this 8 and make it a 7. So 11 minus 6, that is 5. And 7 minus 6, that's 1. And then we just, just make sure 0 plus 5 is 5. It's 11, 6, 7. Just make sure that these two numbers here, when you add them together, you get 815. Okay? Now, what must we do now? Since we have another number to drop, we must drop it and figure out, to be consistent, let me make this black. How many times does 330 go into 1,556? Look at this. 5 is too much because that was 1,650. But let's try 4. So over somewhere, I need to try 4. 330 times 4 is 0, 12, carry the 1, 12, 13. Alright, so it must be 4 times, which is give me 1,320. This number right here. We're going to subtract. We're going to get 6, 3, and 2. You have a remainder of 236 because there is no other number you can bring down. So 624, remainder 236. Okay, that concludes this video presentation on the Math 090 Readiness Exam Review from Spring 2011, Section A.